Alright, so this is going to be my comprehensive tier list for weapons. And the for the weapon tier list, I'm not doing like F tier, S tier, A tier because I feel like it's kind of arbitrary. I just kind of want to put them in general categories, and they can be shuffled within a degree or two. And these are just my opinions on them and in all my time I've played the game. So, right off the bat, we have one of the best weapons in the game, the mini beam. It might not seem like much, but it really is just so good. Like, you can do up to 4 damage with it. Usually you'll do 4 to 3 per ship. It's every 12 seconds, so that's incredible DPS. It's 1 power. What else? It has the chance to start fires, so you can get some crew kills with that, and you can also do the bio swipes with it, which is where you like swipe it without doing damage, and then it'll damage crew, and then you can kill crew that way. It's just very, very strong, and it's really hard to lose if you have a mini beam, unless you're don't have any defense like Stealth C. Then it's not as hard. Let's see. The pike beam. This one, people either really like it or really don't like it. I'm one of the people who thinks it's a pretty dang good weapon. I think it's not overpowered, but it's definitely strong, and it has saved me many times throughout the game. It's a little bit slow, but it just does so much damage, and it's fast, so it's easy to swipe on no pause. And yeah, it's just a pretty good weapon. And it's relative, and the main thing that makes it good for me is how cheap it is. It's only 55 scrap at stores, and it's only 2 power, so it's a very cheap beam to get online. The next one is the halberd. I'll put it in the outstanding tier. I don't think it's broken, but I do think it is the best beam, other than mini beam. It's very, very strong. It does loads of damage. And it's power hungry, kind of. It's 3 power, and it's slightly long, but it's about as long as the pike beam, and it does twice the damage, as well as it can shield pierce, and has a decent length, and it's very, very good for just tearing apart enemy hull. And it's also not a bad system breaker as well, because it's still 2 damage into a system. So if you just do that across like 4 enemy systems, they're not going to repair it for a very long time, if at all, until the next volley where you just kill them outright because of the obscene damage. Very consistent and strong weapon. You basically are happy if you get it at any point in the game. The only problem is sometimes if you play it too early, you won't have any like weapon buffers, or you won't have any good shield defense. So it's kind of vulnerable to getting shot down in the early game when everyone has fast weapons, but it's still pretty good even then. Next one is the Glaive beam. Now this one is special because it's kind of like a bell curve when you play it. When you're first starting, it's like right here. When you're become pretty good at the game, it's like right here. But then the more you play, like when you become really, really good, it's around like right here. Or no, it's around like the middle, right here. And I don't know. I think in certain situations, Glaive beam is one of the best weapons you can have. I'm not even talking about when you have a pre-igniter, that's just a given. But it's very consistent if you can manage to get it off. Like once you get cloaking and hacking, getting a Glaive beam is a really good pickup because it's just so much damage on the enemy ship. The only problem is everyone knows the charge time. The charge time is abhorrently bad. It has the longest charge time of any weapon in the game. But if you can defend it, it's pretty dang good. And once you have the systems to back it up, it's just a really good weapon. So I'm going to put it right around here. Now the hull beam, I think the hull beam is basically the same as the pike beam. They're pretty interchangeable for me. The only difference is that hull beam can damage hull, so it's really good for breaking ships and just blowing them up in general. But its swipe is a little bit slow, so it's slightly harder to use on no pause, but it's totally manageable. And trying to think what else is there to say about it. It's expensive. It's 70 scrap, which is more expensive than the halberd beam. And that's kind of bad sometimes since you're not able to play it immediately. The reason I like pike beam better is it's a lot easier to just pick it up and play. But it's definitely a better weapon than the pike beam, barring cost. So yeah, I think it's a really good beam. Now, the fire beam is another weird one. It's really good at bio-killing ships, and it's really good in certain spots, but the main time you want to have a fire beam is like if you're really far behind and you need a way to get scrap and you need a way to take down an entire enemy ship all on its own for very cheap. So this weapon can take down entire enemy ships except auto scouts on its own, and some rock cruisers, but even then it's still effective. I put it in the good because it's very strong with shield hacking, and as long as you can do that, you should be fine. Just dealing constant damage to them and killing the crew. And I don't know, like if I had a different tier for good, and like a tier between good and average, it'd probably be there. But I'd say it's probably around here, maybe like right here. And maybe an average. I don't know. It depends. It really depends on your setup. But if you can shield hack and you can do a little bit of damage to the enemy weapons, it's pretty dang good. The only problem is the charge time. It has a really bad charge time, and it has a really slow swipe speed. So you really do kind of need the shield hack, otherwise it's basically going to do nothing. So maybe I put it like right here. I definitely think it's better than Glaive Beam. I use it more than Glaive Beam. And now we have this bad boy, the Anti-Bio Beam. Now this is one of my favorite weapons in the game. It's really fun to play. And I think it's a really good weapon to have when you have 3 weapons that are already really good, or even 2. You want like a decent volley. Like say the best, like this starts on Slug A, which has dual lasers, so it synergizes pretty well with that weapon because you can play like Flak, dual lasers, heavy laser, and that's already a good weapon setup, and you don't really need to upgrade it that much. And then you slap the anti-bio beam onto that, and suddenly you're a really good crew killing specialist. And in that situation, it's very good. I think it's one of the best weapons to have it right there. But any other time, it's usually not that good because it's power hungry, it's 2 power, and all you get to do is damage crew. So it's a good crew killing weapon, but it's definitely not great all the time. It's like, I put it maybe here. I think it's underrated, but yeah, I'll put it right there. It's nice to have it like in an extra weapon slot to switch to if you want to crew kill the enemy ship. Other than that, though, it's just kind of there. So now we go on to the bombs. So for small bomb, I don't know, man. I think it's worse than the beams. But on a because these two are like different setups. You don't use beams on a teleporter ship, and you don't use bombs on a gunship as much. So they're kind of too different from each other to put in the same tier, but I will. I think small bomb is very good. It's 1 power, 2 damage. It's essentially an Artemis you can get early game that doesn't get blocked by defense drones and doesn't damage the hull, which can be nice for breaking systems without risk of blowing your crew up in the enemy ship. So I put it right here. It's also just it's also decent on gunships. I should mention that. It's just a good weapon to have on gunships to like take out piloting or any system that you want to. So I put it here. It's a good weapon. Don't sleep on it. Now for this one, the firebomb, I put right here, honestly. It's not useless, but it's power hungry, first of all, for a bomb. It's 2 power, and it basically does nothing. It starts at most I've never seen it start like 3 fires on my ship. I've seen it start 1 or 2. like whenever I use it, which can be nice for like burning down a specific system that's hacked. And it's also nice to spam on like the boss to crew kill phase 1. But I don't know. I just never really find myself using it, if at all. And you could say, ooh, but Rock B has firebomb boarding. No, it doesn't. It's very rare that you do that. And at that point, you want an actual weapon that can deal system damage consistently. It's not very good, and it's power hungry, and it doesn't do enough for what it is. If it did like 1 system damage, it would be decent. It would actually be pretty good. But otherwise, it's usually something I just sell. Now, Healing Burst goes right down there because it's basically useless. It can... The only time Healing Burst is good is, say you're running a teleporter ship with a clone bay and you want to heal your crew so that they keep their skills, which, by the way, is not really needed at all, and it doesn't really matter how good your crew is at fighting. If you have the correct boarding strategy, you don't need to keep their skills, really. Or like if they're Lanius. But the only other time other than that it's useful is if you're running Slug B and you want to do the strat where it's you don't get the medbay. You skip the medbay and you get hacking, cloaking, and then mind control or drone control or whatever you want. And that way you get to have 4 systems whereas you typically have 3 in a normal run. And that's pretty cool. I've managed to do that a couple times, and it's really fun. And then this can act as its own system. After every fight, as long as you don't let your crew die, you just bring it out and heal them, and then you continue on. But other than that, it's essentially useless, because those are such rare circumstances that it's basically never going to happen. So I put it in the useless tier. So, moving on, we have Ion Bomb. Now, Ion Bomb is... I think it's good. It's nothing insane, but 1 power for taking down 2 layers of shields and holding it there, or 1 power for disabling half the enemy's weapons is pretty good. The charge time is not great, but it's usually pretty good. I put it like up here, actually. It's pretty... It does a lot, as long as it hits. It's also great for taking down Zoltan shields. It's definitely a really good pickup on a boarding ship, but on certain ships, like Stealth B, it also synergizes really well with the Glaive Beam, because it's very cheap shield removal, and then this thing will just shred through the enemy ship. So getting an Ion Bomb on like Stealth B is really good. But in general, I don't use it too much, but it can be nice if you need a way to remove shields. Do not sleep on Ion Bomb. It's a pretty good weapon. So now, Breach Bomb 1... I don't know. It's like the Leto missile, but it always causes a breach, which is nice. It's good for auto scouts, and you only get it on Slug A, so it's also good for bio killing. But I don't think it does enough to really be considered a good, or even average weapon. Really, it's 1 damage, 1 system damage. The breach is nice, but it's usually not very good. Now, the other one is its bigger brother, the Breach Bomb 2, I think is a very strong weapon. It's very, very good, but I don't pick it up all the time. It's good on a boarding ship and a gunship, since on a gunship, it's really good for like disabling weapons or disabling shields or piloting. Basically, it's a really great system breaker, and it keeps it down because of the breach. And, I don't know. I think it's better than Small Bomb just because it does more, and it's really hard for the enemy crew to recover from a breach bomb. And the charge time is not great, but it's not terrible at all. It's the same as the Halberd Beam, I think. It's 17 seconds, so it's totally manageable. It does not have horrible charge time, unlike the Ion Bomb or something. Now, Crystal Lockdown Bomb. This is a stinker right here. I don't think I've ever actually used this, unironically, and been like, wow, thank you, Crystal Lockdown Bomb. If only, like, if you were gone, I wouldn't have no idea what to do. It's It's such a useless weapon, and it's so situational. On Mantis C, it's only useful in like the very, very early game to break systems. And once you get level 2 shields, you just use good crew micro to break systems instead, or stun bomb. So I put it there. It's not good at all. It's probably the worst weapon in the game, actually. Never used it, probably never will, because it's really bad. And now, speaking of stun bomb, this one is debated. People really like it, but they also don't like it. It's a weird bomb, but yeah, you get to go there. It's not good. Anyone who says it's good is kidding themselves or memeing. It's really just so useless. But like on Mantis C, when you use it to like either you stun the crew so that you can kill them, which is nice. Having that extra health one up on the enemy crew is really good, or being able to break a system. But it's just so situational. Like, the one time I was like, wow, actually stun bomb, because you were there, that was really good, was when I was running a stun bomb and a fire beam build for the flagship. And I stunned 8 crew in the shields room, and they all died to fire. That was the only time I was like, that was cool. Thank you, stun bomb. But other than that, it's basically like a cell. It's scrap fodder. It's scrap fodder. You don't use it, really. Now, repair burst. This is another weird weapon. Because, like, first of all, if you're powering this, you should really be powering something else. If you're preparing for something to, like, face tank damage, you're like, playing the entire game wrong. The only time repair burst is good is when you need to defend your clone bay on, like, Fed C. It's pretty good on Fed C because you don't have cloaking. So, say, like, a stray Hermes goes into your clone bay and your crew die. That's really bad. If you have the repair bomb, you can repair it and power it up. And that's, like, the only time it's good as clone bay insurance. But, I stick it around here. I'm trying to figure out which is worse. Probably slightly better than Crystal Lockdown Bomb. Yeah. Sounds about right. So the bombs are either good or bad. That's usually how it goes. Now we get to go on to the crystal weapons. The crystal weapons are also pretty weird. I don't typically end up using them because they're really rare and hard to find. But, I will say in general, crystal weapons work very, very well with each other. If you can get, like, 2 crystal burst ones and 2 crystal heavies, that's a pretty good weapon combination. But other than that, crystal burst 1, it's probably better pickup than fire beam. It's 2 shots for 2 power, which is typically good in FTL. But it can be shot down by defense drones, and it has a slow charge time. But it's not bad. Maybe I put it, like, here. I don't know. I shuffle it, like, I want to have it within, like, one tier of each other of where it should be. So, like, the 3 tiers it accompanies. So average, below average, and bad is, like, where it should be shuffled. I put Crystal Burst 2 in just below average because it's very slow 2-power, 2-shot weapon. Crystal Burst 2, bad. I've used it once when it had a Crystal Burst 2, Crystal Burst 1, and then 2 heavy crystals. And it was really good in that situation because it was just a crystal shield breaker, and the crystal weapons obviously synergize with each other. But other than that, it's essentially useless. 3 shots for 3 power is fine on some weapons, but when the charge time is 18 seconds and it can be shot down by defense drones, it's just bad. There's much better 3 power weapons. And this thing is not really even scrap fodder. Well, it is, but it's really bad value. It's like you sell it for 10 scrap. And then, yeah, pretty bad. The Crystal Heavy 1, however, this one's really good. It's horribly underrated, I think. Like, people play Crystal A and have it, and they're like, oh yeah, this ship kind of sucks. The weapons are too slow. Well, this thing pierces shields. This is like... This is essentially a heavy pierce, but without the power drawback. It's 1 power, and the only thing it trades off for is shot down by defense drones, which is obviously not great. but it can usually be played around. It's essentially just a slightly worse heavy laser. But heavy laser is already a really good weapon, so having it be slightly worse does not make it bad at all. It's still a pretty good weapon. And it fits well in any gunship, really. Heavy Crystal 2? Yeah. I mean, I know it has a 100% breach chance. It's got the same power damage ratio as the Heavy Laser 2. But it just has a 20-second charge time. It's horrible. It's like if you want to play a breach missile, but you don't want to waste missiles, which at that point, what's even the point? It's like I've never used it before. It's such a cumbersome weapon, and it's so slow, and it doesn't do enough for the power you allot it. Okay. Done with the crystal weapons. Let's move on to the flaks. So, advanced flak, the best weapon in the game. You can't really debate that, because it's got almost the same power damage ratio as the mini beam, but it doesn't. It's a perfect shield buster. It's 1 power, 3 shots every 8 seconds. It's so spammable and broken. Like, I don't even know why they have it. Like, Lanius B would already be good without this weapon. It would be good if it didn't have weapons and you just had 2 Lanius at mind control and the teleporter. But then they're like, no, what if we just add the best weapon in the game onto it? Oh, okay, cool. And now you don't have to worry about anything at all in Sector 1 or building an offense, because everything you build is going to be super cheap as far as offense is concerned. Like, you pick up a heavy laser with Lanius B, that's 2 power and you're already firing 4 shots. It's ridiculous, and like, it allows for some really stupid weapon combinations. Like, you can do advanced flak, flak 1, burst laser 2, and halberd beam. Like, how ridiculous is that? 9 shots and then a halberd beam. Absolutely busted, and honestly should not even be in the game. This should have just been a regular flak. And speaking of the regular flak, it goes right here. It's a very consistent buy, for me at least. It's such a great shield buster, because it's not only is it cheap to get and pick up and put online, it's also common. It's one of the most common weapons, and all of the shots hit at once, so it's much easier to do stuff while their shields are down, because all 3 of their shield bubbles were taken down at the same time with no recharge overlap. And yeah, very consistent, strong weapon. You pick this up no matter what build you're playing, and it's very hard to justify not using it. It's very strong, and by far one of the best weapons in the game. Now, Flak 2 is it's in a special spot. It's very good if you need to overwhelm the enemy offense. Like, I've had multiple runs saved by Flak 2 because, like, I can't get rid of a crappy 3-power weapon, and then I see a Flak 2 and I'm like, okay, well, this is definitely better than that 3-power weapon, and it lets me break shields now, and I don't really have to worry about that anymore. It's really good if you just need to demolish enemy shields. Other than that, though, it's like right here. I think it's better than these. I think it's better than Glaive Beam, and it can definitely save your run, but the charge time is the main thing holding it back. It's really slow, but it's 3 power for 7 shots, which is a really, really good power damage ratio. And it almost, like, yeah, it's the problem. The main issue with it, other than the charge time, is that because of the charge time, if the enemy ship has cloaking, that's a really bad time, because it means you have to wait like 40 seconds instead of 20. And that's why I didn't put it up here, because I used to think it was way better than it is, but it's just average. It's a good weapon if you really, really need to break shields. It can definitely make your offense that's like far behind for like the entire game just become so much better. Okay, Ion Blast 1. Freaking, I don't know, man. I think it's better right. I think it's right here. Ion Blast 1 is a good weapon. I don't care what anyone says. It's a nice 1-power weapon because it's really easy to get online. And it removes 1 shield bubble, and it holds it down if you need to. But along with that, if you really need it to be, and you're not struggling with shield removal, you can shoot it into enemy weapons once it's already damaged to disable whatever weapon is next. So, like, I'll throw you a situation. Say the enemy has say it's Sector 3, and the enemy ship has a Burst Laser 3 and a Heavy Laser 1. Pretty bad weapon combination. And say they have, you have a Burst Laser 2 and an Ion Blast 1. Now, this is assuming all your shots hit. You can try, well actually, okay, I should think of a better weapon list because it would work for this. Okay, let me start over. Say you have a Burst Laser 2 and an Ion Blast, and the enemy ship has a Burst Laser 3 and a let's just say a Hermes missile. Or no, okay, fine. Say they have a Burst Laser 2 and an Artemis, right? What you can do is you shoot the Burst Laser 2 and you damage weapons once because they have 2 shields. What you can then do is fire the Ion Blast into their weapons. So like you'd fire the Burst Laser 2 and the Ion Blast at the same time. And the Ion Blast will hit their weapons after the system is damaged, and that will automatically disable whatever weapon is next. So that means if you fire the Burst Laser 2 and then the Ion Blast, it'll disable both their weapons as long as you shoot them correctly. And that's a much better outcome than shooting their shields once with the Ion Blast and just shooting Burst Laser 2 at their weapons. It's not very good because it doesn't disable the second weapon. And in that situation, it's much better to have the Burst Laser 2 breaking the shields. And that's why I think Ion Blast is good. It's a very cheap, like it can do like what is it? An imaginary damage to a weapon because it'll automatically disable it. If they have a scary weapon and you shoot it into their weapon system, it'll disable whatever's next. And if you get multiple ions doing that, it's even better. That probably went on too long, but basically Ion Blast 1 is good, and don't underrate it. It's very good, and nice to throw onto any build. Ion Blast 2, however, I do not think is very good. It takes a very long time to take down enemy shields, if you even manage to do that, considering evasion on hard mode is so freakishly high. But, it's also just not a very, it's very power hungry. It's 3 power, and it makes it hard to upgrade weapons after it. Say you have Ion Blast 2 and a Chain Laser. It's costing you, 125 scrap to just get the Chain Laser online, and for what? An offense that's not even that good. Ion Blast 2 and a Chain Laser is pretty bad. Yeah, basically Ion Blast 2 is overrated, but not terribly overrated. It's just not very good. But it's not useless. Sometimes it's nice to have, especially on boarding setups when you need to shred Zoltan shields. That can be useful. Here, we got the Heavy Ion. 2 power for 2 ion damage, and it's very slow, and it's prone to missing. I don't think it's better than that. It's worse than the Firebomb, that's for sure. Probably that's worse than the Firebomb. Yeah, I'd rather have Crystal Burst 1 than Ion Blast 2, by the way. Heavy Ion is horrible. It's horrible ion damage, and it's prone to missing a ton. It's decent if you can get 2 of them, because then you can stack it and it's okay. But other than that, it's just really bad, even on boarding ships, because it's so slow and it doesn't one-shot a Zoltan shield like you would expect it to. If it did 3 damage, it would be pretty good. But it does not, so it stays down here. Now, Ion Stunner, I put it right in the same vein with the Ion Blast 1. I think it's really good. You do all the same things the Ion Blast 1 do, disabling weapons or disabling shields, but you get to stun enemy crew. And this allows for some nice crew killing to be done. Especially, it synergizes well with Fire Beam or just any fire weapons in general. It lets you stop crew on their way to a station so you can shoot them or something. It's really good. And it's just a nice, easy weapon to throw into your build without much thought. And, yeah. People underrate the 1 power iron weapons. I think they're pretty dang good. Now, Charge Ion. This one is special. It's one of the most complicated weapons in the game. It has tons of strategies surrounding it. But, I don't know. It's like at the bottom of good. It's nice. It's okay for removing shields, but it's like it's essentially the Ion Blast 2, but just better, because it's one less power, and you can also charge it up to make it much easier to stack. It can be good for taking down shields, and it's also really good at disabling enemy weapons if you're shield hacking. So I put it at the bottom of good tier. Yeah, it's a good weapon, but it's nothing like way up here. Chain Ion. It's a big old stinker of a weapon. I don't know, probably like right here. I don't think I've ever used Chain Ion, really. It's just too power hungry. What else? It's really unbearably slow for what, 2 layers of shield removal. It takes like 56 seconds to chain it all the way up to 2 shield removal, which is just ludicrously slow. And it can be good if you're in like fighting against a safe ship and you want to get a crew kill. But other than that, it's just bad. Don't use it. Like, it's decent. I guess it can be decent with other ion weapons if you're running like an ion drones build, because drone builds take a while anyway if you're going full ion. But typically I don't use drones with ion even if I use drones. So, pretty bad weapon, basically useless. I feel like that sums it up. Basic laser now. I don't know where to put it. Probably like maybe bottom of good. Yeah, it doesn't scale great really, but I don't know. 1 power for 1 damage is basically the same as 2 power for 2 damage with like the burst laser 1s and stuff, so it's got a decent power to damage ratio. I don't think it's as good as the ions because it doesn't have the option to disable weapons or keep enemy shields down. So I think it's just worse. But it's got a fire chance, and it's just it's a basic laser. Like, what are you expecting from it? He's doing his best, and like on the Kestrel B, sometimes all you need is like 2 basic lasers, and you can pretend that your ship is a 3 weapon slot ship, and just play the 2 basic lasers as 1 burst laser 1, and then it's good. Suddenly, if you think about it that way. So yeah, don't sleep on basic laser, and don't just immediately sell it. It's not bad. Dual lasers is basically just if basic laser was really, really good, because it has all the good things about basic laser, but just 1 extra shot. It's very strong. It's very good for building very cheap offenses. Like, you can get a dual lasers and a flak, and that's 5 shots for 3 power, and unless you take down any number of shields. And from there, you have 5 extra weapon power to put on whatever weapon you want to deal damage through shields. It just makes upgrading your offense so much cheaper, and it's really, really convenient. And that's the main reason I think it's better. Because while Flak is amazing, it's still 2 power, and it's just slightly more expensive to get weapons online than dual lasers. So yeah, dual lasers is incredibly strong. Burst laser 1 is just dual lasers, but it costs 1 more power. It takes up 1 less weapon slot than 2 basic lasers would. So I think it's just really good. It's not overpowered. It's like the benchmark weapon for what makes a weapon good, I think. Maybe. I don't know. If I see it in a store, I get happy. Because I'm like, oh hey, look, a consistent weapon that can break shields or damage systems or do whatever it needs to do because it's a laser. Like, they say, it's, like, the weapon description is nothing flashy, but it gets the job done, and I think that's perfectly a perfect description, because that's what it does. It just runs, and it's good. Yeah, do not sleep on Burst Laser 1, it's good. Now, Burst Laser 2, however, is just Burst Laser 1, but if it had 1 extra shot. It's not as good as dual lasers because the power is still slightly annoying to work around, but it's very strong. It's, like, tons of, like, this weapon has gained, like, almost like a cult following. Everyone knows that this is, like, the really good weapon. It's super consistent, probably more consistent than the Flak. It's, well, actually, I don't think it's better than the Flak, solely because it's a lot more expensive, and in a lot of spots, Flak is just nicer. Because you're typically using this to break shields anyway, and I feel like Flak is just a better shields breaker. But a Burst Laser 1 is an incredible weapon. So, yeah, it goes right there. Burst Laser 3, slightly better than Crystal Heavy 2. I've never once used this. I don't think. Yeah, I've never used it. But I can see in some spots, like, maybe you can't get hacking, and this was the only thing you could find at a store. Then 5 shots is still 5 shots, even if it's 4 power, which is ridiculous for how little shots it fires. 4 power for 5 shots is awful. Especially when the charge time is almost 20 seconds. It's just so long. Like, you compare it to the Flak 2, and it's no contest which one is better. So, yeah, Burst Laser 3, basically useless, but I guess if you don't find hacking, it's fine. It's very much a pre-advanced edition weapon, because, like, if you aren't able to break shields and you see this in a store and the, like, original FTL without advanced edition, you're like, oh, hey, nice, I have a way to break shields now. But here it's just not good at all. Okay, moving on to the heavy lasers. So, heavy laser 1, I put it probably up here. It's not better than Flak or Burst Laser 2, but I think it's better than Halberd Beam. Very consistent weapon, just a basic laser that does 1 extra damage and has really good status effects. I'm doing stuff right now, I can't do it. I'm making a tier list and I'm making a video, so sorry, you have to go into the laptop into the other room. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. What was I saying? It's got really good status effects, like the fire and breach chance are really good. It makes it a really strong crew killer if you need it to be. But it's also just a really good system breaker, and then it keeps those systems down because of the good status effects. And yeah, very cheap, efficient weapon that is pretty much an insta-buy whenever you come across it. Heavy Pierce 1 is pretty not great. I mean, it's the same power damage ratio as the basic laser, but it can pierce 1 shield layer. That's actually not that great because it means it doesn't synergize as well with beams. You don't really have the option to break shields if you want it to. And yeah, it's not very good because of the power cost mainly. Like, Crystal Heavy gets away with the shield pierce because of the power cost. It's very cheap to upgrade offense when you have Crystal Heavy 1. But with Heavy Pierce 1, like, it's insane how much that extra power bar costs. Because it means instead of upgrading weapons costing 35 scrap, it costs like 50. Or instead of costing 50, it costs 75. And that money will stack up over the game, and you'll waste a lot of money just keeping this online. So I put it probably better than the anti-bio beam. Well, yeah, can go there. Now, Heavy Laser 2. Heavy Laser 2 is an interesting weapon. I put it in top of good tier, first of all. I think it's a very strong weapon, but it's not overpowered. It's 3 power for 2 shots, which doesn't sound great, but each shot does 2 damage and has the same status effects as Heavy Laser 1. So, as long as you would have a way to break shields, this thing just destroys enemy systems, and it's really, really nice. And the other thing that's great about it is, unlike a lot of other 3 power weapons, the charge time is really good. It's only 13 seconds, which synergizes really well with these other laser weapons. And overall, it's just a pretty strong weapon. Nothing insane, but it's pretty good. Hull Laser 1. It's just another laser weapon. I think, yeah, I put it around right here. It's better than these bombs, and it's a better shield breaker than these. But it's pretty slow. It's still 2 shots for 2 power, but it doesn't get shot down by defense drones like this idiot, and it still has a good breach chance. And yeah, it's just a regular 2 power 2 shot laser that's slightly slower than this, but you also have the option to damage hull if you want to, which if you need to suddenly end a fight quickly, it can be useful. So, yeah, Hole Laser 1 goes right there. Hole Laser 2, I think it's worse than Flak 2, honestly. But, it's still... It's 3 power, 3 shots, still 1-to-1 power damage ratio. But, it's good. It has actually really good status effects. So it's like if you want the Heavy Laser 2 status effects, but you also want to have more shots, and you don't really care as much about the damage, it's kind of good in that situation. It's really good to fire after, like if you have a way to break down shields, because it'll just wipe out enemy crew and make it impossible to repair systems as long as you start fires and breaches and stuff. But, yeah, it's kind of average because it's slow. It's 16 seconds, and, it's only fires 3 shots, which isn't that great. Just let me break my neck there. Alright, charge lasers. Charge laser plus, right here. Basically, okay, I'll also put charge laser 1 right here just as a preface. Maybe, like, right here. I don't know. I'd rather have this than beams. So, the charge laser 1 is just a slightly worse burst laser 1 because it doesn't have a fire chance, and, it charges slower. But you also have the option to fire your shots periodically, so it's good for weapon training, and it's also better for resultant shield removal. The Charge Laser Plus is just a 1 power version. Like, think of these two as the same and these two as the same, because that's kind of what they are. They're pretty similar. And Charge Laser 1 is pretty consistent. You pick it up and you're like, oh, hey, nice. It's almost a Burst Laser 1, which is just a really good weapon. So, Charge Laser 1 is pretty good. And it's also nice for, like, if their shield's already down, it's really good for making it, for just suppressing systems with constant fire. And that's what it has 1-upped on. And that's when it's better than the Burst Laser 1, when you just need to constantly fire on them. Charge Laser 2. This weapon is, I don't know. It's probably slightly better than Hole Laser 2. Because you fire the same amount of shots at the same time, but slightly faster, and then you have the option to charge a force shot if you want to. Like, it's cheap shield removal. The only problem is getting up to 4 shots is 20 seconds, which is really, really long. And, not very good. But, 4 shots is still 4 shots. That's, like, my defense for this weapon. I've used it many times in many spots because I'm like, sometimes I just need that extra shield busting. And, it's cheap. It's cheap shield removal, even if it's slow. And sometimes that's all you need. I think it's better than Hole Laser 2, even if this one does have better status effects. Chain Laser. Moving on to Chain Laser. This one is a big old stinker. Because, I'll put it right here. It's slower than the Crystal Burst 1 at first. Like, it gets faster over time, which can be nice for certain builds. But, man, that 16 seconds initial charge time is just really, really bad. It's so cumbersome, and it's not very good because of that. It has a good chance of getting broken, and on ships that start with it in Sector 1, it's pretty bad against, like, Zoltan shields because it takes so long. It's also really fragile if it gets shot down. It's not very good. I think it's the worst laser, other than, like, Burst Laser 3 and maybe Chain Vulcan. But, like, sometimes 2 shots is 2 shots, so I don't know. Maybe it's better than, like, that. It's probably better than Glaive Beam. I think I'd rather have a Fire Beam than Chain Laser, though. I think it's not very good. But it's definitely usable. Now we get to go to Chain Vulcan. Chain Vulcan is it's good in specific setups, but more often than not, I just find it really power hungry and money hungry and slow and bad. So, maybe, I don't know which I'd rather have. It's better than the Chain Ion Blast 2, probably. Put it right there. Yeah, because it's just, like, you're like, oh yeah, but it fires really fast after 36 seconds. Yeah, 36 seconds. Oh, okay, that's a small amount of time. Its only saving grace is that it can destroy an entire ship all on its own. So if you can weapon hack and cloak, it's fine. And if you have some other weapons you can go with, it's fine. Because it definitely needs that weapon buffer. Because if it gets broken, you have to start that whole spool up all over again. And you're probably just going to die because it's that bad. Like, playing it early on is typically a mistake. If your offense is far behind and you just need something that can kill a ship, pick up Chain Vulcan, I guess. Because it's very hard, at least for me, to use effectively. But other people can certainly get by with it. Even, like, at top level play. Alright. Lido Missile. It's just a worse Breach Bomb 1. Goes right here, probably. Yeah, probably. It's just worse. It does one less damage. It has a chance for fire, at least, and a breach, but this one's like a guaranteed breach. This one just isn't, so you can't really bank on it. I guess it's good if you need a cheap way to remove enemy piloting early on with like other lasers, but other than that, it's pretty bad. Artemis, however, put it right there. I personally think it's better than Burst Laser 1 and Charge Laser 1. It's like on some of the ships it starts on, like Rock A, it can get a bad reputation, but on others, like Kestrel A, it's really strong. It's great for like removing scary enemy weapons early game. It's also great late game, just as a general boarding weapon. You take out enemy clone bays, hurt enemy weapons. You just do whatever you want with it, and it's very power efficient. It's essentially a heavy laser that can pierce all shields, which makes the shield piercing on these actually good. But it does use one missile, but as long as you manage your missiles carefully and don't spam it like an ape, then you're fine. And it's a really strong weapon. Pegasus. Pegasus in certain spots is very strong and can save a run. But it's also really good on boarding ships, and it can be decent on gunships if you're not able to find hacking, but you also have like a strong beam or something. It's decent at shield removal. It's a heavy laser too that can pierce shields. It still takes a while, but it also can bypass defense drones. So I'd probably put it like right there. Yeah, Pegasus is decent. Hermes Missile. Probably there. Well, no. I think it's in this around the same area as Pegasus. Hermes Missile is one of the best boarding ship weapons because it's a fast 3 damage missile, so you can take down anything you want with it. You can take down any level medbay, any level clone bay. What else? It's also really effective against breaking enemy weapons. Not as effective as Pegasus against breaking shields, but still decent. Can be shot down by defense drones, so I actually probably think it's a little bit worse. But Hermes is strong. Don't sleep on it. I usually end up selling it anyway, but it's not bad. Don't underrate it. Breach is worse because it just takes longer and doesn't really do as much. And it can't bypass defense drones like Pegasus. It does cause a breach though, which is nice. But it's too slow for me. And also has a chance to just whiff, whereas Pegasus, you get like a second chance if you miss one of your shots. This thing can just whiff entirely, and it feels really bad to wait like 22 seconds for it to recharge again. So yeah, below average, but it's more usable than other missiles and bombs. Hull Missile, awful weapon. Probably right here. Like, you can still use on a boarding ship as like a 2 damage missile, but it's still just so slow. It's like 17 seconds, and its buff, which is doing 4 damage on enemy hull, is basically useless since you never try to DPS ships with missiles, really. If you're doing that, you're playing the game wrong. Unless you have like an explosive replicator and you're intentionally handicapping yourself. Or like you were forced down that route. But Hull Missile's just bad. Sell it. It's like worth 40 something scrap. Or like, no, it's worth like 37 scrap, which is a ton for a weapon. So yeah, and use that scrap to better your offense or something else, because it's just not good. And then swarm missiles, it's kind of like the same thing, but you have the option to charge an extra missile. I mean, I don't know. Swarm missiles is weird. It's like, there are some strategies with it. Like with Rock C, you can fire it at 7 seconds and it'll do 1 damage to their weapons, which can be nice if they have a scary weapon. At 2 shots, it's just a 2-shot missile, and you can use it to break down a system if you're boarding, and it works then. I'm trying to think of any other times. At 3 shots, you're just charging it at your max, and you need to do 3 damage. It's nice to have those options, but I'd rather just have the actual missiles that don't like straddle the line on like missile, because it's also really slow to charge that 3rd shot. I don't know if that made sense what I was trying to say, but basically it's slow and it doesn't really pick a side on whether it wants to do a little bit of damage or a lot of damage. Yeah, I don't really find myself ever using it. It just doesn't do enough for me to like it. So probably like right there. And yeah, this is pretty much how I feel. Some of these things could be shuffled around and there might be some inconsistencies. But yeah, this is pretty much how I feel about it. And obviously my opinions are subject to change, so this will probably change within the next even month maybe. I don't know. But yeah, thank you if you watched, and yeah, have a great day.